So we're in the midst of an economic crisis. It's almost certainly going to be a depression. Republicans and Democrats are arguing with each other about which banks and corporations should get the bailout and about whether working people should get one breadcrumb or two breadcrumbs. And it has me worried that rather than this crisis being an opportunity for the United States and the rest of the world to wake up to not only the fragility of the global capitalist system, but the injustice of it. The billionaires, the banks, corporations are literally arguing that workers should put themselves back in harm's way in order to save the economy, quote unquote, by which they mean save the existing economic order, the capitalist order that has a few billionaires at the top and the rest of us fighting over table scraps at the bottom. Because there is an opportunity, I think, for a new kind of consciousness to arise where workers begin to recognize their power. This isn't a general strike, right? It's a quarantine, and yet, as a result of the quarantine, are workers not beginning to realize that all that wealth in the stock market actually depends on their labor, and that them staying home for a week or two causes the market to collapse? Therefore, why are they not seeing some of the value created by all of the labor that they're doing day in and day out? And now our lowest paid workers are on the front lines of this pandemic. Grocery store workers, garbage men, and others are being forced to keep these essential services going for minimum wage most of the time. And Republicans' biggest concern now is that a little bit of extra unemployment money or unemployment insurance is going to make them lazy and that they'll never want to go back to work for minimum wage again. We can't let them keep telling this story that poor people are poor, working people are living paycheck to paycheck because they're not worthy of the love of the God of the market. It is a demonic religion, capitalism. And we need to exorcise it. And it could be that until there are viable alternatives, people are afraid to let go of the old gods, to let the old gods die. They'd rather hold on to the possibility that they are just a temporarily embarrassed millionaire and that maybe one day they too will be rich and on the top, even though they know in reality how unlikely that is. We need to invoke a new god or an old god, recover an old god. Or maybe gods. We should experiment. But we need to do this collectively. We can't do it as individuals. I've been thinking and writing about this crisis, this pandemic, and this economic collapse as an intrusion of Gaia. And Gaia is not nature. Gaia is not the environment as environmentalists have thought of it. Gaia is difficult to characterize. We are Gaia. And yet we're also, as Marx would put it, capitalist society, capitalist economics is responsible for creating a metabolic rift that puts the human economy at odds with the Earth's ecology, undermining its own long-term conditions of survival by ruining soil fertility, by creating climate change and mass extinction and so on and so on. And so while there is no escape from Gaia, we humans, capitalism could never be anything but Gaia. Gaia itself, rather than being some providential, teleological mind that is able to course correct, planning in advance, Gaia is not purposeful in that kind of way. I think Gaia is a kind of animate being, but we've been imagining what it means to be animate, to be ensouled, in the wrong way, as some kind of ghost in the machine, a pilot sitting in the cockpit behind the control board. That's not what a soul is. And that's not what it means for Gaia to be alive and for us to be organisms within this larger organism or original organism. Gaia can respond and react to what industrial capitalist growth society is doing. Gaia is not just passive as modern people have imagined nature. Gaia is a historical actor, just like us. And we don't always act with foresight, but we act nonetheless, right? So, what to do now? I think in this time of pause and quiet and quarantine, we have an opportunity to gestate, to give birth to a new cosmology, a new view of the world and our human place within it. We cannot go back to business as usual. We're called to transform. And some have been comparing this quarantine to a kind of cocoon state. The old world is dissolving. And may something new take its place, something more just, something more humane, something more democratic. May we expand our sense of society beyond just some humans who make enough money, beyond just our species, to include the larger community of life upon which we depend for our own lives. We need to wake up to that reality.